How does this work? Oh. Oh, okay, I can invite people to speak. What's that? Oh, and people can request to speak. I see, I see. Let me see. Is my mic working? Is there a chat? Oh, there is. Oh, okay. There's a chat. Can someone reply if my mic's working? Apparently the just replies to the tweet. Oh, okay, cool. Oh, this isn't all right. Yeah, I've never used something like this. It says there was a new reply, but then there was nothing. I don't know. I gotta get used to all these settings, by the way. I apologize. Okay. 뭐지? It works? Okay. Okay. So anyone can apparently request to speak, and then I can invite, I guess, and then chat about whatever. Or I don't know. Also, heads up that probably just do this until I get all my steps in or something. Just pacing while doing this. That's fine. And again, anyone just either write a question that replies to the tweet or just request to join the call. It's given 2020 lockdown classes vibes. Yeah. Oh, I mean, I think seminar type things or class type stuff like this, I actually think it's absent in League of Legends. No content creator has ever utilized stuff like this. Simply pro guides, and at one point, I would say, what was the other one? There was pro guides, and there was what was it? Skill capped. I think that they both had a model like this in some form, but the people that were behind the model were never really vetted. And so obviously it was kind of like you're getting scammed if you end up joining it. That makes sense. Okay, no one has requested to speak yet. I don't know if everyone's shy or what. Have I played Elden Ring? No, I haven't played Elden Ring. Thoughts on T1's current form? I don't know. I don't get to see all of the games. The main thing with T1 is that they're always going to do the same thing. And that's just because the team's been together for 3 years now, and the entire team is team-led. So it doesn't matter what coaches come in. It doesn't matter what staff they get. It doesn't matter about anything. The direction of the team is always going to be what the players want to do. Coaches historically have been blamed for like certain draft picks and stuff like that, but it was always the players. Yeah, choosing their picks. Now, sometimes the players will veto other players, but yeah, I know that that's something that's come up over the years. Yeah. Maybe a basic question, but how do you pilot ADC in mid game? For AD carry and for most things, it's not really, especially like if you're not really high MMR. So if you're not like a challenger player, grandmaster player, amateur, academy, etc. Generally, the answer is always really the same. there's no piloting in some magical scientific way to do anything like that's knowledge based. Really, it is just mechanics. How good is your CS per minute? How good are you at reading the speed of minions and rotating to lanes accordingly? Because minion speed actually changes 4 times throughout the game. So when the game starts out, minions have 325 base MS, and this is intentional in order to allow champions to move faster than minions. And thus certain rotations, certain recalls, most famously probably Cheetah Recall, is able to be very easily done because of the minion's base MS. 10 minutes is around, or well, 10 minutes is actually when the first minion speed change actually occurs. It goes up in increments of 25. And then it happens again at 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and then 25 minutes. Minions will reach their maximum movement speed of 425. And in mid game, typically, most champions in general, but notably AD carry players, they're really poor at rotating between lanes in order to keep that CSPM up. And then everything else is mechanics, and that's already a nightmare to discuss in itself. So, yeah. Oh, so some people requested to speak, but then they left. Or they opted, they asked to speak, but then okay. That was okay. Oh, requests to speak. Okay, hold on. Wait, does this work? Hello? Hello, hello? Hello? Can you hear me? What's going on here? I added this person because I think I recognize the name. I think it's a challenger player from NA. But it seems like they're having problems with their mic. Or can anyone else hear them? Maybe I just can't hear them. I'm not sure.
Hello, can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, I can hear you now. Hello.
Sorry, I'm not in my normal setup, so I was figuring out the mic. What do you? How would you quantify the value of like Umbral Glaive, especially on like assassin junglers paired with zombie? The zombie rune. Do you think it's terrible now, or does it still have like situational uses, especially in like higher tier play?
I think Umbral Glaive is fundamentally one of those items that you have to really quantify, like what it what its purpose is in the game. And obviously, yes, you can remove vision, but you could probably remove vision anyway, right? So you're talking about really specific vision that you're removing, and then it's conditional, right? That you're actually able to remove it more often than not, right? So then you look at the actual stats of the item and what it's granting you. And then you have to look at the bigger picture of, is the conditional vision that you're able to remove able to enable something else or activate something else within the game that is larger than the potential differences between Umbral Glaive stats as an item and other stats that maybe you were able to get. And I think that conversations like this, they occur a lot in like card games, right? Where cards will enable each other, and independently on their own, they're actually not that great, or they're great in different formats, right? I think Umbral Glaive as an item is way better in solo queue because you're able to utilize its features a lot more. One, you're more likely to actually get guaranteed vision kill. And in solo queue, people are already poor at reacting to vision and utilizing vision. Whereas in pro play, people are good at utilizing lack of vision and using vision. So they're able to sort of do both. And you're less able to get value out of the item. So in that regard, I've always had gripes with Umbral Glaive in competitive. And as in solo queue, I think that it's fine on certain champions. But I think that the intricacies that determine whether or not the item can be built in competitive is larger than just the item itself, and it's dependent on its user, as well as its users surrounding champions, as well as it's the opposing team's champions. Because sometimes vision in itself is fundamentally a misunderstood concept in gaming. And I think that League of Legends players understand it less so than players that would maybe come from games that have a lot more fog of war and have to utilize different skill sets in order to reach decisions or better, like more accurate guesses in order to do something inside of the game. And there was a tweet that I always used to link, especially when I was like streaming. Sometimes I would play it on stream, and it was the chess grandmaster Daniel Noroditsky talking about space advantage in chess, and that obviously space advantage, it's great and everything, but you have to determine what it actually means. It doesn't actually matter if you have vision advantage, likewise in League, right? So as direct parallel, it doesn't matter if you have vision advantage if that vision isn't doing anything. If there's a dragon fight about to take place in 30 seconds, it doesn't matter that you have the enemy's entire Baron side warded, right? It doesn't matter about all the vision that you have in top lane. It's completely irrelevant, but people who would either be bad faith or not understand certain things like this would still say that it's vision. But again, it doesn't matter that it's vision. I think that all conversations like this all go into the item.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, in solo queue specifically, I think against Fiddlesticks, I found like Umbral Glaive and Zombies to be like really useful for Fiddlesticks comps. But that's just like one situation.
Yeah, Fiddle is like one of the few champions that does need actually more control wards purchased. And that's offset by the power that he grants by guaranteed vision denial. Right, his base damages and his kit and his CC and everything like that is actually just so strong that guaranteeing that it goes off is almost always going to be worth more than guessing whether or not it'll go off, or trying to play in a way that it does go off, but not maybe in the best situations. And so I think that the gold offset from, say, control wards, or hypothetically, if you have Umbral Glaive or these types of things, to guarantee that Fiddlesticks is able to utilize his abilities, it's night and day than compared to other champions, right? Because a lot of his power is actually in having the fog of war. That's how Riot balances his power.
Yeah, makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, all right, bye. What's it? Okay. Oh, this is, dude. Wow, this program or this thing is so cool. This is add people. This is like better than Discord. Well, I mean, it's better than Discord for doing something like this. This is really interesting. Okay. Can also check out. So let's see. Let's see what some of the questions were before we just add another speaker. How is life? Are you coming back soon to streaming more? So, talked about this a lot. Basically, last year, people know that my wallet was stolen. I got pickpocketed at World's Finals. And when that ended up happening, my Visa and my ARC and other stuff was in my wallet. And immigration, basically, I had to wait 2 months in order to get an appointment. But during that 2-month period, the initial visa that I would have would end. But there were certain things that I required my ARC to do, because Korea has certain laws in place, and different banks and stuff have all these different things, to where I could not do certain things without my ARC. ARC is your alien registration card. It's basically your social security number, but you need the physical card in order to do certain things. So for 2 months, I lost access to basically all of my electronical stuff. In Korea, I lost access to my bank. I could not even get my American bank to do anything. So I was on cash only for about 3 months. I was using only cash, and that was very stressful. And during this time in January would be the first time that we were able to get the appointment. I went in there in January, and now there was a huge bag of worms because of the 2 months of delay on everything, yada, yada, yada. Fast forward, I have restrictions imposed on me with streaming and like content creation in Korea, and I don't want to mess with it or risk it because obviously this is the year that I'm eligible for permanent residence. So in the meantime, all that I'm really doing is I still talk to players and stuff on Discord, and I still spend time like that. There was a period where I was actively playing solo queue again, briefly. That was mostly during MSI. And I'm allowed to do things that are like FlyQuest, like LCS and that type of stuff. So there's that. Outside of that, I don't know. Just started playing Magic again, and I'm studying Korean quite often because I have to take TOPIK 2. Yeah, so I'm studying Korean pretty often. That's pretty much all that's going on. Let's see here. Do you think items like Banner or Commander should ever return to the game? Yeah, I'm big fans of them. Comments are not sorted by new. That is correct, yeah. Do I think voice chat would improve the solo queue quality? No, I don't. And I've said this, my belief on this many times. If you want an example of how voice chat, I mean, I think there's a lot of micro examples of it, right? We have these streamer tournaments going on, and you can actually see the discourse amongst teammates that are even, challenger level players, right? Some of them even with former competitive experiences. And you can see the arguments that actually take place. Everyone gets to different tiers in League of Legends differently, right? Skill and knowledge in League is not linear. A person that got to master tier might have done it through greatly different means than another person. And so because of that, they're going to have different views and outlooks on the game, which means that the answers that they would have or solutions to various things that happen inside of the game are going to be different. And it's going to be based on their own perspective, 99.9999% of the time. So I think that voice chat, what we see from some other games, can become extremely hostile. I think it can be very toxic. And I think that ultimately you're just going to have disagreements. And I think the inherent nature of League of Legends is toxic in solo queue. I do think that there is a humanization aspect to hearing someone's voice, which can sort of humanize them a little bit more, but they're still anonymous. And I think that if we know anything from like human behavior and these types of things, and social media and anonymity and these types of things, the dehumanization aspect of not realizing that you're talking to another person is why people will tend to be more brash, abrasive, malicious, etc. And yeah, I just don't think voice chat ultimately solves actually any of the problems. I think it actually just changes the problems that we actually have. Yeah. My experience, it's a lot harder to get solo kills in mid lane now than it was in Season 8. Yes, of course. There's a lot of reasons for that. One, the average level of play has gone up considerably, and people understand more about laning. And naturally, when someone understands more about laning, they're going to be much better at just getting the farm, avoiding death, and avoiding lethal ranges, etc. Now, obviously, we know that you can still get a lot of solo kills in game, and that is just shown by people that smurf or make new IDs, etc. You still just have to be much better than your opposition. But yeah, solo kills are obviously a lot less common. Yeah. Let me think. Vigar V2, please watch replay. Thank you, Cat Evolved. Thank you. Yeah, I think absolutely. If a collie takes kill, why are there so many? Why is this meme everywhere? Not a LoL question, but what's your favorite MGG deck to run right now? I'm only playing Draft. I just started a couple of days ago because I'm gonna go to one of the Bloomborough pre-releases this week in Korea. So I just started playing Outlaws of Thunder Junction, and I think I'm about to ding Diamond. I've just been playing a little bit. I'm going to try to just get Mythic, which is, for people that don't play Magic, that is Challenger equivalency. So yeah, I'm just going to try to get Mythic, and then go the Bloomborough pre-release, and then I'll wait and see if there's any like big events in Korea. And if there's like a Bloomborough sealed event or something like that, I'll probably play that. Or but yeah. What's my favorite vacation destination? I don't know. I kind of view Earth as just sort of the same all over. Let's see. You're on a game show and you get 3 doors. Behind one is a car, behind the others are goats. You pick a door, say number 1, and okay, hold on, let me read this. You're on a game show and you get 3 doors. Behind one is a car, behind the others, goats. You pick door number 1, and the host, who knows what behind the other doors, opens another door, say number 3, which has a goat. He then offers that you change your pick to door 2, would you? Yeah, the answer is yes. You of course. So this is variable change. So the reason that the answer is yes, the reason that you would change the door, and anyone who's ever watched Deal or No Deal, which was a very popular American TV series show where I think there were like 30 briefcases, and in one of the briefcases was $1 million. And you would take the briefcase, and then you would one by one eliminate other briefcases. And if you did not get out or take any of the deals that were offered to you, it would eventually come down to 2 briefcases. And you would be asked, do you want to swap? And the answer is yes. It's always yes. And that is because change. Variable change in Lance is the processing of new information and then altering your decision in real time, right? So in this instance, the hypothetical question is that I am given 3 doors, 2 have goats, and then 1 has a car. When I make the initial decision, I have a 33% chance to get the car. When I open one of the doors, and now that was a goat, and then I'm allowed between the last 2 doors, right, obviously, to change my decision, it is now a 50-50 chance. So obviously, I had no knowledge prior. I can't see what's behind the doors. I'm not psychic. And I made a 33% chance decision. I'm now given the same exact decision without any knowledge. Nothing has really changed other than the fact that my number percentage has now gone up. So absolutely, I take the increased percentage, and you always swap because you don't actually know what's going on. I think a lot of League players or people that don't deal with game theory, game probability, etc., they don't understand this concept, and they'll get tied to the emotional aspects of some of the things like, oh no, just chose the right thing, or they actually don't perceive the ability to change and the loss of one of the goat doors as that number shifting. And if you're trying to make profits in the long run and be more correct and all this other type of stuff, then you must always change. And again, for anyone that just listened to that, just Google variable change. You can read, you can read a bunch of stuff on it, and it's very important in life, not just life, people, society, games, everything would be people understood variable change and what actually goes into it and why it's good. Yeah. Okay, let's see. Is there any more questions here? Yeah, it really sucks that the top comments don't appear at the top, or like the newest ones, if that makes sense. Okay. Okay. Answered the question already. Let's see. I think it's the best champion that has little pro play presence right now, whether it's a counter pick or blind. I mean, Ivern doesn't get the amount of credit that he should. He's the best jungler in the game. He's been the best jungler for a really long time. Basically, outside of like the really broken Udyr and the fact that no one plays Nunu, Ivern has probably been the best jungler for about 2 years. but that's not reflected in pro play anywhere. He is starting to get picked a little bit more, and he's continuing to somehow avoid nerfs, which is even more perplexing. But I mean, Ivern, obviously outside of that is like Fiddlesticks. Yeah, and that's all fine. Anivia, if you want like a mid laner or something. Any ideas on a decent way? No, I'm not going to answer that, sorry. The mic sounding like shit, I'm sorry. I said that this was going to be scuffed, so I didn't know how this would actually go, so I did not hook up my Rode mic. Maybe if I turn off my Bluetooth, it's better. Yeah, sorry. Okay. Why are people still build the dogshit item collector? Because they don't do math, and the people that would present to them the math they don't respect, at least, or they can't trust that the person presenting it accurately has deduced that it is the correct item in all situations. And more often than not, the person presenting the item can't actually argue for the item being good. Other times, it is that you're dealing with people that the way that their mind or decision making processes works is muddled with a lot of bad foundation. We'll just say that. All right, let's see. 4 requests to speak. All right, let's get another speaker on here. Let's see. How do I? Ooh, not that. Let's see. Wait, it says there was 4 requests, but there's only 3. I don't recognize any of these people. I recognize the first person, so I put that person on. But yeah, I don't think I'm gonna get that guy that just requested. Racist come requested to speak. Perfect. Yeah, I don't think that's gonna happen. All right, let's get this guy in. Let's see. Hello? Oh, wait, is he gone? Oh, hello. How are you?
Good. Quick question. ADC
Sure.
mid lanes. We've seen in the past that Riot has tried to nerf them, and they keep going back in mid lane. And I do personally, I think the mid lane meta shifts quite around them. Whenever they are present, like ADC's mid lane are present, certain champions don't get played in mid lane. What is your stance on them being like their archetype of champion being present in mid lane?
I don't think there's any inherent problem with the archetype of champion being present in mid. They do end up going back into mid lane, and I do think that a lot of that also does, yes, have to do with a lot of the junglers that are really good are magic damage junglers. And even with the way that current itemization is, mages, people can say that mages, their items are, they're both good and bad. Like their items have a lot of conditions to its power, right? If you're going to go archangels or something like that, you have to complete the item, even if you rush it. And then even if you rush it, all that it's really doing is it's bolstering your inherent stats as a champion, right? If you go Luden's companion, then it has a condition to its actives. And even when you do get it, the curve into getting it is dramatically different from the actual item itself. And that's the problem with a lot of mages, for the most part, is that while curving into their item, they're mostly just their base champion, and the items just allow them to continue to exist as their base champion. They're not benefiting as much from recalls outside of like Lost Chapter of old than other champions, such as AD carries or like Yone or something, for instance, who benefit a lot more from recipe completion. I don't think that necessarily ADCs just appearing in mid lane mean they're always going to be really, really, really strong. I think there's definitely things that you can do to offset them. I think this was like a conversation that I had on stream during MSI with like Cat Evolved, right? Where Anivia, if you can actually get her through the one rough period that she has, then she's really good at neutralizing pretty much all of them. And then once that happens, then she's just going to be a better champion. And then it gives you more access to certain things. So Riot can continue to nerf them, but the problem is, and we're seeing it again now in 14-15, Riot can't really do a lot of balance changes. And the reason for that is because the game is actually extremely balanced. Every single time I say that, you get people that can't perceive the game out of their own role or their own lane, that have no experience in other games at a very high level, don't understand game design, don't understand game theory, and they talk very emotionally charged on Twitter. But for the most part, the game actually is really balanced, and there's a multitude of different answers to different champions and different types of viable actually reflected in pro play. Pro play is mostly just a cycle of pro players cycling their like top 7 champions. And that has to do with the inherent balance that Riot does do, as well as like harmony amongst pro players and pro teams and whatnot. But if you actually look at the numbers that a lot of champions have, or you look at what happens in a lot of the games between elite level players, etc., you can really see that for the most part, champions are pretty balanced and that they have specific answers and stuff like that. Now, the other issue is that you don't get to see a lot of these specific answers or these specific hyper, niche things happen all that often because people don't pull out answers. And then that means that the answers to that answer ultimately also don't come out. So we're talking about like a multi-layered tree of champions, from top down or something that just doesn't actually get to see the light of day because we just cycle the same champions over and over.
I mean, I do think that makes sense. Yeah. Also, the pro players cycling their top 7 champions. Well, I personally don't completely agree with that they do it. I can understand the reasoning.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that pro players and teams practicing like game scenarios and stuff hinders their ability to start playing other champions, or because their time is split, or is that a non-factor?
So there's 2 parts there. One is you saying that you don't agree with it, to which I would obviously just implore you to go on goal.gg and look at the mid lane meta for the last 4 years. Basically every pro player.
I agree with that they do it. I just don't agree with them doing it. I think it's stupid.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, I misunderstood. And then the second question there was, what was it? I just blanked. I'm so sorry. Second question.
Do you think that because they have to practice a lot of other stuff in the team environment, that it hinders their ability to practice like the more one-off champions?
No, pro players don't really practice things the way that people think, right? And I think that people think like Forrest on Twitter are lying, right? When he tweets that pro teams should do games like 10 minutes and just endlessly loop practice bottom dives, right? Like jungle pathing into bottom, setting up a dive, doing the dive, right? Teams don't do that. Top teams don't do it, right? They might have conversations about doing it, and then there might be an awareness, depending on the level of players that are able to do it, but they don't repeatedly practice it over and over and over and over. That does not happen. There's not like specific things that are practiced, maybe outside of like team comps, or like, oh, we're going to play 80 junglers today, or oh, we're going to play AP junglers today, or oh, let's try playing mages bottom today, right? The extent that goes on in pro teams. Outside of that, it's I don't know. I don't like really. It almost like it bothers me as someone that has spoken to this to such length, right? Been a part of so many different teams, either as a fly on the wall or physically myself, or something like this. It's almost like the outside sphere views like the pro circle is like only people that get play WoW maybe understand this, but like Dalaran, right? And it's like a bubble, and they think that stuff, and no one can see really inside of the bubble. And so Dalaran is like this like mystical place which is like pro play, and you see all this money go into it. They have all these people, all these coaches, they have all these staff members, and it's all just totally fucking useless. And then you have occasional people that come out of Dalaran and basically say the stuff that you guys think is going on in there isn't going on. And then it's like no one listens to them. And you have plenty of people like this in the scene. You have plenty of coaches and analysts and other people that have spoken out about this, etc., that what people think goes on in the pro sphere doesn't actually go on. And I don't know what causes that. And if you're asking why that happens or why that's allowed to exist, well, there's a lot of that's an explanation in itself that mostly has to do with non-experts hire experts. But then mentioned experts don't possess an ability to do any of those things. But then non-experts can't discern because there's a lack of discernibility. And I don't know why it is that every single time I talk about lack of discernibility, people naturally get defensive or hostile. And I try to use analogies all the time that, like, let's say that hypothetically I watch a lot of science videos online, right, of a certain topic, like let's say physics, right? And I watch a lot of physics videos. And I watch lots of different YouTube things, maybe documentaries, etc. That does not make me a physics expert, even if I just watch a lot of it. I could have maybe watched 300 hours of YouTube. Now, I might have more of an awareness than your average person, your regular, guy or girl. But that does not make me anything like an actual physicist who could be able to talk on the matter at a really fundamental level. So if I then was forced to watch a debate between two physicists, I would not be able to discern who is lying and who's right unless there was some sort of demonstration. Or they said things that could be demonstrated or could be linked to or pointed to that is beyond just, a one-off result. Or something like that, right? Something that would be able to be repeated and tested over and over and over. Yeah, that was kind of long, but I felt like maybe there was going to be a follow-up, and so that's why I compounded more onto the answer.
All right, thank you for the information. I'll give it to the next speaker now.
Okay. All right, sick. All right, have a good day.
You as well.
Yeah, bye. Okay. All right. Let's see. Let me answer some questions first, and we'll add another speaker, I guess. All right. Let's see here. Who's messaging me? Okay. Probability of winning after changes the door in the Monty Hall problem is 66%, not 50%. Yes, because the fact that you were able to choose 2 out of the 3 options. Yes, that is correct. Yes, I was trying to explain it in a way that, I advise people to look up what that was, and then you'd get more of an answer. But I was hopefully explaining it enough in a way that intrigued people without having to go to that part. But yes, you are correct. It is 66%, not 50. To winning, yeah. Sort of, but deal or no deal, it's not the same. Who's that? Host knows. I see. What champion classes do you think are benefiting the most from the current item roster? Enchanters. Enchanters benefit the most from current item roster. Would you expect to be able to break and change cultural norm differences between East-West when these things exist way outside of esports? First, second generation Chinese immigrants do amazingly well in academics math, in big part due to their rule following and discipline. I think that's actually a great thing to have a conversation about, but it's not one that I want to have right now because I feel like I would just go off on a tangent and I would begin to talk about a lot of things. I would prefer to just, because this is the first time I'm ever doing something like this, I'd prefer to talk about like a multitude of things and cover more topics than sit on one for like 45 minutes. Uh, I think voting is valuable at all levels of play. Yeah, it can be. Voting can be valuable at all levels of play, but mostly on a very basic level. I think that at really lower levels of play, a person watching their own VOD isn't necessarily going to capture the same things as a really high level player watching their own VOD. And so voting is okay, but the basic bread and butter that I tell everyone is that CS per minute and number of solo kills on your lane opponent in lane are basically the two biggest metrics to chase. Because even if you're doing a bunch of things incorrectly while chasing those two things, the skill set that you acquire while on the way to getting those things to be abnormally higher than relative to your peers at whatever tier you're at, is a skill set that allows you to then mold and expand more into your gameplay once you're actually stuck. Because a person who is regularly solo killing their opponent, 2 or 3 times a game in lane and getting 8 or 9 CS per minute, but then consistently losing games, it's a lot easier for that player to learn how to stop losing games than the person who goes 4.5, 5 CS per minute, doesn't solo kill the opponent, but then makes better decisions perhaps in the mid-late game. Because that person can't generate the kind of advantages and likely can't carry independently on their own. And that's why I think those two metrics are really good, even if you do them a bit recklessly. Would I mind giving you speaking rights? You're from ERL? No, you're not from ERL. Let's see. Maybe, yeah, let's try to maybe get him in here. What do you think is the cause of having almost no personalities in pro play with nobody streaming anymore and nobody caring about personal brand, and what can be done about it? Yeah, that's a really, that is a good point. And it's mostly because the audience, you got to understand, is all older, right? Everyone's older now. We're all older, man. When I started, League of Legends, what was I? I was turning 21. You know what I mean? I was much different. The things that I enjoyed back then were different. My priorities in life were different. Things that I found enjoyable were all different, right? All of us have grown up. And so now, when people are turning into certain streams and stuff, you have to be wanting to capture certain audiences. And you have to know what those people actually want to see or what they're interested in. And I don't think that a lot of these pro players who are essentially like one of the last gens, we're probably not going to have too many more gens of pro players. And I think that we've seen people like talk about Arnold, the Gen G CEO, on Twitter, that it's becoming more difficult to find Korean talent. And this was a problem that actually started a few years ago, especially when I talked about how even T1 lowered their requirements in order to get into their academy. And now certain teams are even almost pseudo allowing you to buy your way into lowest region or like lowest level of pro play in Eastern regions. And what I mean by that is there's a growing culture of like not clans, but like team houses, like not team house, but like sort of like the old game academies, like GCA was in Korea. And then basically what will happen is parents can pay an exorbitant amount of money to have their kids be a part of this. And there is a guarantee X amount of times per year that someone from that academy will get promoted or something like that. It'll be picked up. And that's how bad the current talent pool is. I do think that we're in sort of the last final of pro players, at least for League of Legends, as it currently is, which does mean that a lot of the current league pros and stuff are probably good to stay for a while, right? Now, I do think that there are some more exciting prospects that are coming in like Europe or like even Brazil, right? I think that there's some really interesting players that are coming. And I do think that there may be likely there probably is some in China, and I just don't know enough about China. But Korea doesn't really actually have that many super prospects anymore. I think like Lucid was probably like one of the last ones. I don't think that we're going to get a Keria again for a while, or like a Chovy, right? Or something like this. So again, about the question, why do they not care about streaming? Well, streaming doesn't actually make money unless you have enough viewers, you understand marketing, you understand branding, you understand social media, and streaming is also not just streaming on Twitch. For most people, I think the only streamer that I've actually ever met that is oblivious to fucking everything and has the most scuffed setup, does literally fucking nothing, and is just clueless on all aspects of like branding, social media, like all the shit, is probably Elo Santa. Fucking, it is the funniest thing in the world. He downloads the most basic OBS or like Streamlabs thing. He just plugs in one mouse, one keyboard, and a shit webcam. That's it. Nothing else. There's no Stream Deck. When he saw an Elgato Stream Deck, he wondered what the fuck that was. I remember when he came over and he saw like all the setup and the mixer, right, and the microphones and like all this other stuff. There's very few people like that, right? And obviously, Elo Santa grew because of unintentional growth, right? He was just very funny with like Tinder, and then he had editors approach him. And then those editors put the clips out on TikTok, and they put them out on YouTube and Instagram Reels and all this other stuff. And he grew because of that, right? But he was never going to do any of that himself. Now, most pro players actually don't have a whole lot of fans. One of the things that I think is like really bad, right? I think this Twitter account that I'm on right now, it has like 3 tweets, right? From 3 tweets and whatever, and those tweets that I made, this Twitter account already has more followers than some LCS and LEC pros, which also means that it gets more engagement than those pros. And you can say that it's natural because of my status inside of the scene, but really Twitter shouldn't have that kind of effect. And I think it's really bad if it does have that effect. So you have to have people that are willing to and want to grow their brands. And in order to do that, you have to understand a multitude of different aspects that goes into content creation. And you're not learning that while you're simultaneously playing League of Legends. And the people that teams will put in charge to do that for you, they often fucking got into it because they wanted a job, not because they're actually really good at it. Which is why there's actually not like obscenely crazy editors that are in the scene. And if they are, typically what happens is they move up the ranks really quick. And they just they go off into other things, right? Or they do other types of things. Or people that really do understand like algorithms or like studying it. I wish I had Max Waldo on here now, because you guys, if anyone here's watched my stream or something like that, you know that Max is making a lot of money. He's making more than anyone else in League of Legends right now. And obviously he left League about a year and a half ago now, right? And Max is very deep in the trenches of, YouTube and TikTok and algorithms and stuff like that, and running absolutely massive viral accounts, in addition to the work that he does on OnlyFans, not himself, but for the couple that he works with. And all of that stuff he had to learn, right? So while he's learning all of that, and while he's studying that, and he's spending 12 hours a day on all of that, etc., he's not about, someone like him would not be about to go and work for a pro team or a pro player or whatnot. The other reality is that a lot of these pro players, because they are kind of the last gen of pro players, they got here because they just played the game really well, not because they have anything else. And if you look at the first gen of pro players, Riot made the LCS, but their passion for the game and their passion for streaming was basically actually first and foremost, right? If you look at the original days, 2012, 2011, etc., those pro players, they liked the game, but they also liked streaming, and they were high level, right? Because they liked engaging with their chat and everything else like that. Riot made the LCS and made these tournaments and made the pro circuit. It didn't exist when that first gen of pros and second gen of pros actually started playing the game. So their motivations and their desires and what they found to be fun was actually in a different place. It just so happened that they were also the best in the world. But now the current gen of pro players, etc., only cares about League of Legends. They don't care about all these other fucking things. And most pro players would actually still, well, most pro players maybe, it depends on their age, but I think a lot of them would still play the game regardless of whatever their salary is. Because it's just about playing the game for them. They don't actually see things in the bigger picture. I think this is one of the things that is kind of unique, it used to be unique. About like Fudge, I don't think that the same thing is actually, I don't think it holds true anymore. Fudge, a couple of years ago, like 2020, Fudge used to say that he just always wanted to be a part of games. And there are people like this, right? They game hop, they go to different things. Oftentimes they end up as casters, or they move into hosts, or they actually move into game design or something that has to do with games and esports, right? I see this all the time, right? A lot of former riders actually used to be former pro players in different games, or they used to be high-level players in League of Legends. Some of them. And in other games, a lot of former pro players ended up as commentators, or desk hosts and whatnot. And those people care about esports, and they care about just gaming in general. And there's not a lot of pros like that. Anyways, that was kind of long-winded. I hope that answered the question. Okay, there's 10 requesters to speak. All right, let's go see. Let's see who we can get in to speak. Who's this? LoL coach and jungler. DM for coaching top 1%. All right, hold on. All right, let's see what this convo is about. And then Cat Evolved is requesting to speak. Okay. Okay. Hello? Hello, hello? Is your mic working?
Oh, I was muted on Twitter. Can you hear me now?
Oh, it's okay. How are you?
Good.
Yeah, I can hear you. Well, I've been better. All right. So what do you want to talk about?
One thing that I was thinking about talking about was Nunu Jungle, and
Sure.
I don't think that he's actually as effective of a champion as I think that you've previously stated that he's been. And it's funny because when you first brought Nunu Jungle up around the time of like Worlds last year, I was pretty surprised because I do think he's very underrated as a neutralizing pick, and because of like his isolated jungle matchups, I agree in that he has essentially only good jungle matchups. He almost loses to nobody. But I think that the champion and the way that the kit actually plays out within the game provides far too little value in team fight and actually fighting. And I know you bring up his passive, which not many people know about, but I think that the champion's actual ability to perform in fights is way too linear in terms of like his W, his E only rooting after like 4 seconds of standing against somebody and needing to land snowball, and his damage being completely negligible unless building like AP, which is something you can only do in solo queue. And I think that the reason why he strives in solo queue is because of how chaotic and volatile the lanes are, and so he just pulls off a bunch of cheese ganks. But I don't really see how he can work in pro play given his actual kit.
Okay. All right. So one thing is this is already difficult to answer because obviously we have no basis for Nunu in pro play. There's no Nunu games. Two, being a neutralizer is not inherently bad. There's been plenty of champions all throughout League of Legends who their primary goal is to just sort of be a neutralizer, and then they have something else that they do in team fights, right? I think Karma is probably the number one, right? Karma is a neutralizer in lane, whether it be in mid or top. Obviously, she has certain pairings down in bottom lane that allow her to be a bully. She can actually bully some matchups, the same way that Nunu can bully some matchups, I guess, inside of the jungle. But being a neutralizer is not inherently bad. It just matters on what is the purpose of your neutralization. which means that we now have to entertain other variables, such as who's the enemy team, who is your team. Nunu can play a chaotic game that is very strong compared to some other junglers, and this inherently is due to his ability to traverse the map at high speeds. So things like doing disproportionate jungle clear paths to maybe his team's lanes, or intentionally doing things that are just awkward to create a intentionally chaotic environment. He's able to get away with that a little bit better than most champions because of his speed. You do bring up his passive. A lot of people don't know about his passive, Lord. Every single time I bring it up to pro players, especially AD carry pro players, they didn't even know that it existed. So for anyone listening, you can just go on LoL Wiki and look at Nunu's passive. Nunu gives typically his AD carry always a massive steroid in team fights. Effectively like half an item worth of advantage. And obviously that half item actually probably scales almost into an item itself, maybe in the way later stages of the game, where the attack speed benefit ends up being a lot better. The other thing about saying that you're not seeing how he functions and all this other type of stuff, this is kind of difficult to engage with because we're just doing this conversation over like audio. And even if it wasn't over audio, even if it was an isolated game example, that's not really exactly how we reach conclusions in League of Legends. If I were to ask you a question on why is Ivern good, why is this champion good, it's never because of one isolated game. What ends up happening in your mind, or anyone's mind, when answering that type of a question, is there becomes a flurry of thousands of images from, literal, I guess you could almost say anecdotal experiences, right?
Yeah, you're correct.
That lead to the conclusion, right? So that's what happens when someone answers, why is this champion good? They think of 1,000 things that happened in various game states that was like, oh, this is good. Oh, this is beneficial. That's not so bad. That's okay. So already this is difficult because this is not as simple as like, oh, just get one game of Nunu, show this, and be, run and done. And the same way is that's irresponsible testing if you were to just play Nunu one game. So it gets kind of convoluted to have this conversation. Now, I will agree also that he did suffer a little bit when Zyra, I think, got better inside of the jungle. When it was just Karthus, Ivern, etc., Lilia even, I think Nunu was proportionate to them, and then obviously Zyra's inclusion makes things a little bit worse. On the counterpoint that he doesn't get really far ahead and he doesn't deal damage, he doesn't necessarily need to deal damage because he's just, again, a disruptor and a neutralizer that then enables his AD carry. And he has types of things that he can do with, obviously, certain smite secures and things that he can do in the early stages of the game that other junglers just simply can't. And that, in theory, should allow him to do certain things in the jungle that other junglers can't.
I'd say that
whether it be about like dragons or sure, go.
Yeah, I'd say that I should really rephrase my point because I agree with you in everything that you say that Nunu can do in terms of disruption. Literally in some matches, just being able to walk into the enemy jungle and Q smite away the enemy Gromp, whatever it may be, he can do completely unorthodox players, like you say. But just in terms of like, if you are playing Nunu against a Draven, Nunu without his W, you say like he has good maneuverability around the map and stuff, and that's true when he's snowballing into certain areas. But if you just picture an actual like gank in bot lane, for instance, if the enemy ADC is Draven, if it's Ezreal, if it's Kalista, if it's any of these champions, Nunu literally can't interact with them because his W locks him into a set movement pattern with a set turn radius at a set speed, which is actually slower than walking when you first cast it, and it gains up in speed, but as it gains speed, you lose turn speed. If you get hit by a Draven E, you aren't a champion for 15 seconds. What can that champion even do? And you can't even proc your passive for your ADC unless you get an auto attack.
Okay. So, again, this is the stuff that I don't... It's awkward to engage with, right?
But
you gave me a fictional scenario of... Sure.
My point is just that there are very few scenarios in draft that Nunu can actually be picked where he can actually perform and act upon all of his strengths to the point where he's in this discussion of like top jungler. I understand it in a vacuum, but in terms of draft positions, I think they are so scarce.
Okay, so a couple of things. You're saying Nunu can't land Snowball on Draven.
Yeah, lots of different ADCs.
Yes? Okay. So Nunu can recast Q, which just sends it in a straight line.
Recast W, yeah.
Okay, so he can, yeah, sorry. So he can recast it, sends it in a straight line.
Yes.
I would make the claim that obviously he can hate Draven, because it does happen, right? The same way that, by your logic, Nidalee should never land Q. Ever. Ever. She should never land it. But she does.
Well, at
and we know that she
range, does. Well, I mean, it's kind of a different thing. Nunu W is not really the same spell. If you're Nidalee and you're standing next to someone and you cast Q, it's one thing. But she also has gap close and dashes and stuff.
But we see Mattering Spears hit all the time in pro play.
I mean, sure, but the spear could also be
We
from
do.
fog and certain thing. Yeah, the snowball could also be from fog.
Okay.
That's true.
Snowball could be from fog, but also the target could be.
Yeah.
Or Nunu could just be approaching from an angle that they can't get out of the way.
Nunu also can't go through terrain, whereas like something like a spear could.
Sure. Okay. That's fine, right? But now we're talking about different things.
Yeah.
Functional fixedness, where for anyone listening, just Google functional fixedness as a term, because I think this is a problem that plagues a lot of players, especially in League of Legends. Advocate for playing other games that induce a lot of cerebral thought, so that you get out of functional fixedness. You're boxing Nunu into this thing where he has to always do A, B, and C. But that's not always the case, right? You gave me a situation and a proposed hypothetical where Nunu can't land his snowball on these champions. Well, who the fuck is his teammates? And also, where is he trying to land this? Why was he trying to land it? There's a million variables I just can't engage with. It's just a hypothetical. And I don't mean any disrespect by this, but it's almost as lazy as when people would say the same exact things for different champions over the years, right? Ziggs can't land Q. That's why Ziggs is a bad champion, right? Ziggs takes too long to get online. Aurelion Soul's bad for X, Y, and Z reasons, right? Everyone's bad. APA can only play Aurelion Soul and Ziggs. They're both bad champions. If you play these champions in Korea or China, the mid laners are just going to push on you, do X, Y, and Z. You can't do anything. This is literally what professional players and other analysts and coaches and other people would say about APA when he played those two champions.
Yeah, that's true. But
then all that happened was Aurelion Soul was picked up in China.
I will say something that's unique about Nunu is the fact that he has to commit with himself, because he almost does become the projectile, and he can release it, but then again, it's blocked by terrain. It only travels so far. Blocked by certain. A
lot of things are blocked by terrain.
Yeah.
Okay, well, and like in theory, also Lilia should just never land E. I mean, I can name a million things
Lilia
that by your logic
like
shouldn't hit.
Movement speed. She can flash during her Q. Nunu can't. What I'm saying is Nunu can only fight in one way.
Okay, but if Nunu range, you're not dodging it. It's just gonna knock you up.
Sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
Oh, did I cut out? I'm sorry. Hello?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Nunu could cast a snowball from really short range, and you can't dodge it. There's a million other things that could be going on. Sure. But it's a conversation that just sort of goes in circles, right? Because you'll say that he can't do something, I'll say that actually he can. and then it goes back and forth that way, right? And
yeah, I mean, it's all conditional. My only point is that I think that there are very few conditions in which he can function.
Sure, but I feel like you're saying it all from functional fixedness, right? You're creating situations where he's forced to do X, Y, and Z. That I don't believe that that's always the case. I don't think that the onus is necessarily on him to engage, or the onus is on him to force something like that. That's where I think the functional fixedness actually comes in, because again, who are his teammates? What is going on? What is the game state? Where are they fighting? These are the type of questions that I'm more concerned with. I'm not concerned with these ideas that pigeonhole him into a scenario where he just can't do X, Y, and Z. And then we just scoff at the notion that he should ever be allowed to do it when we have so many historical examples of similar arguments applied to other champions that were proven untrue. And then obviously, as someone that has been on the fighting end of this for a multitude of different champions over the years, it's very frustrating to me because this should not be the basis in which a champion is disregarded.
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't disregard him. I think that he should be picked, and I think that he does have competitive value just in limited draft settings. I would absolutely love to see Nunu in pro play.
Sure. Okay. Is there anything else, or is that all?
I did want to bring up some points about jungle clearing.
Sure.
And I just wanted to ask you what you think about the fact that pros really don't optimize their clears to the levels that they're able to. For instance, Karthus' clear has been nerfed multiple times this season, but someone who is very experienced and proficient at Karthus would be able to clear to the same speed that pro players could in previous patches. And I think that there's a lot of false judgment that pro players make about jungle picks, and also the game is kind of balanced strangely around jungle clears because they aren't balanced based on what is possible. It's based on what people are doing. And it's also kind of strange because there were certain instances in the past, for instance, with Rengar, where he was able to clear like 303, 305 when his W got changed. And even before it hit live servers, rioters found out through the jungle clearing community and actually just reverted some of the changes. Basically, my point is just that pro players are dropping and not really realizing certain picks within the jungle because of their lack of practice on jungle clears, where picks are really the same as they used to be or the same as what they were playing them as. Let's say Karthus, as an example, was super OP. Malice was the only person really advocating for him heavily in pro play, and the only person who was inspiring people to play him. And people played him when he was OP, but only really playing him at a mediocre level. And then when he's nerfed and they could play him to a higher extent to get the same results, they really just don't do it. But I think that's a recurring theme within pro play as a whole. For instance,
yeah, it is. No, I get what you're trying to say, but it's not wrong. Yes, they don't optimize their pro clears. There's very few professional Iverns that do his 247 clear.
Yeah, Karthus could even clear 247 this season.
Absolutely. Not disagreeing with it. Pro players do not care about it. They do not practice it, and their teams don't make them practice it. Absolutely.
Yeah. And it's wild to see because especially when I saw Zyra picking up so much in pro play because of her 247 one smite, when Karthus could also 247 one smite for the entire season with no absolute focus, no notice cloak, no runes, and he was just not seen really until MSI.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I mean, I don't
Alright.
think we disagree, so there's nothing to really talk about. But I was just
Okay.
bringing it up.
All right. I'm gonna get another caller in.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. No problem. All right. Bye.
Bye.
Let's see. Oh God. Fucking. What does Cat Evolved want, man? What does he want? All right. Wait. Let's see. Yeah. What do you want? His mic's muted, I think, on Twitter.
Yo.
Yeah, what's up? Yeah, what's up?
Hey, I have like 5 minutes.
Okay, what do you what do you want to talk about?
Anything.
Okay. Are you back in NA?
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah, wonderful.
Oh my god. Oh, actually, we can talk about this because I brought you up earlier. Your perspective on Anivia versus Corki or like ADCs in mid.
What about it?
No, I can talk about it.
Oh yeah, I mean,
Because that's something.
I haven't really played it, but I still think it's good.
Okay, Pat, you gave me a lot to work with there. Thank you so much. Like, oh my god. Wonderful. Wonderful.
It was more like something I said that I would play and I just never did, you know what I mean?
Yeah, okay. Great. Thank you. Thank you so much for that.
I also never played Axon too, I want to point that out.
Oh yeah, you didn't actually pick him up, which is surprising. So, what do you think of Riot's current balance patches?
Oh, I think the recent one's gonna be kind of cool.
14-15?
Yeah, I think this recent one, 14.14, was like laughable, but 0.15 actually looks kind of promising.
Okay. Why?
Promising in the sense that it's not going to get any real change done initially, but it's like the right path. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like, dude,
I like how Riot has us in like a domestic abuse relationship. That's what it actually seems like, by the way. Where like you get abused, right?
You know?
Yeah. You get abused for like 4 or 5 patches in a row. You're like, oh fuck, I hate my life. And then they release one patch that looks like they're starting to change. Exactly. And then it's like, oh my god, but they said I'm sorry this time. Like,
no, but I think it's interesting because you
it's such a fuck. It's
like,
literally a domestic relationship. Yeah.
A lot of people like complain about assassins being weak. So like, I mean, you can see they're literally doing straight buffs to like talent and stuff, adjusting to other assassins, changing some AP items too. Overall, like, trying to find a way to get rid of the ranged champions in top and mid, I guess.
Yeah.
Finally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wish they would like look at those as TP, honestly. That's what I'm hoping for.
You know, they could do actually extreme changes to remove ranged champions from like mid or top.
What does that mean, extreme changes?
Well, an example of an extreme change would be like minions in this lane receive 10 less damage from physical auto attacks. They could do stuff like that. And then obviously they could do
in the past, right? Where they've made
they've done stuff like that, yeah.
Really?
Well, they've done stuff like that. Well, I mean, they do it to certain champions' abilities, right? Like this ability has a modifier.
Overall, to the game, like the fundamentals of the game.
Fundamentals.
Very rare, unless you count like adding objectives or changing objectives or whatever. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about like the game's basic fundamentals, you know? True.
Well, they do stuff like that, and bot and top minions, they move faster at the start of the game.
That was cringe, but yeah.
That's cringe, okay. Yeah, I don't think it's beyond the realm of what they're willing to do.
Of course not.
Yeah. Okay. All right, I'm going to let you go. I'm going to let other people get in.
All
right, see you. Bye.
Bye.
All right, so let's take some questions, and then... What's it? Okay, let's take some questions, and then we'll... I have to scroll to the bottom, by the way, guys. I got to scroll to the bottom because Twitter's cringe and doesn't make the top comments appear first. All right, let's see. Permawank. Why is everyone voting for Permawank to get in? Okay. Let's see. What do you think of Vladimir's state? Talia and Sol being picked shouldn't be in. Talia and Sol being picked shouldn't he be in a great state? I think just talk to Elite 500. I do think that Vladimir is actually viable. But again, Vladimir has a lot of stuff that goes on with him that it does make it really weird. Like he has certain cancels and he has certain mechanics and other types of things. And then he did just get buffed. So it is actually surprising that after Elite 500's run on Korea server that no Koreans picked him up, which was very bizarre. Zyra isn't only picked for... Zyra is definitely not picked for just her early smite. She's picked for a lot for her zone control and things like that, in addition to her clear speed and her damages and the fact that she just doesn't allow you. Okay. How do you epistemically justify conclusions, thoughts in a video game like League, both inside and outside of the game? Man. Okay. Let's see. How do you epistemically justify conclusions, thoughts in a video game like League? Okay, so I don't believe that it's about something being absolutely true or absolutely right, unless it maybe has something to do with like math, right? At least inside of the game. What I believe in and what I experienced, especially coming from an RTS background, because StarCraft was my primary game for 9 years, and League just eclipsed it by being my game for 10 years. So I was an RTS player for 9 years, and now League, I'm going on my 11th year in League. So the way that obviously RTS players would reach conclusions is dramatically different than, say, the way that a League of Legends player would reach a conclusion. And obviously we don't have like AI or something helping us, right? Like something in chess. But I think that being most correct or closest to correct is what is most important. But you have to keep testing and leave open the question or the answer to endlessly just being attacked so that you know whether or not it's actually still true. So if there's a conclusion, like, for example, let's say Ivern, let's just use him as the main example, right? As like, he's the best jungler in the game. There is a lot of different things that you can show and demonstrate and play to show why he ought to be the best, right? But you have to remain open to the possibility that he's not based on introduction of new information. An example of this, I think we actually see examples of this. We saw it in StarCraft. We actually saw it, well, we just saw it in StarCraft actually with Flash returning, where Flash tried to do very old style build that was perceived as being pretty much not, it wasn't vulnerable to anything. And so you could do it all the time. But the time between him stopping and coming back, Protoss players actually found a way to abuse that build. And it was based on very thin things and guaranteed information that you can now get through X, Y, and Z. And that now renders that previous build obsolete or not true anymore. So in the case of like Ivern or some, you would assert something as true based on all information, but you would then have to keep allowing it to be attacked and tested, whether or not that actually still holds true constantly, right? And that's how you get the introduction of new things. I don't know how to answer the question on how you necessarily explicitly go about that, because I think that it's all, not only is it very long, but I think that you have to ask a lot of questions on what is this doing, what is it not doing, and what is it making up for, what does it synchronize with, these types of things. But it's never about something being 100% right or 100% accurate. It's just that it's the closest perceived thing, right? Because obviously League is always improving, and with the introduction of new information, then you have to be willing to change your answers. And that's something that I've always tried to advocate for, especially when people think that I have like absolute beliefs or absolute laws on like my outlook on the game or something, and that's actually not the case. I believe in something up until its ability to be shown otherwise. And sometimes, and this is where some of the headache actually comes in, some people don't realize that if some, for instance, let's talk about a draft or something like that, right? If one draft is winning 60% of the time or something like that between assumed evenly skilled teams, then that still means that they're losing 40 games. And the dishonesty and the frustration, especially in League of Legends, comes in when someone would see a couple of the 40 games that the draft should lose and then conclude that the draft will always lose. And that's where that frustration arises. Change that the 60 should be the one that you side with, and that should be the one that you opt for. And then there can be a multitude of other branches on like this sort of a topic of intentionally opting into 60-40s. Or maybe you intentionally opt into a 40-60 specifically because of a vulnerability that the proposed enemy team might have to that kind of an archetype or draft. That actually, even though it's actually in theory a 40, for you it's advantageous because of the dynamic between Team A versus Team B. Something like that, right? And I think that these things always have to be juggled with, thought about, and just entertained in general. Okay. Let's see. There's another question. Okay. Okay. I hate Twitter. I hate Twitter, man. What's your secondary Twitter account? What does that mean? What? This is my secondary Twitter account. You're replying to it. What? How long will I live in Korea? Have I noticed any decline or general change in the country? Well, I've lived in Korea 12 years. So yeah, lived in Korea 12 years. Have I noticed any decline or general change in the country? I wouldn't say decline. In terms of general change, I have noticed that English is a lot more common pretty much everywhere. Accessibility is a lot easier, and imports of foreign foods is a lot more common, as is foreign restaurants. Why do I think that there's a lot of ignorance in the League community? I don't think it's just the League community, so I'm not going to pretend that it is. I think that there's just a lot of ignorance in general, and there's certainly a lot of reasons for that. That just can stem from why do people play the game that they're choosing to play? Why do they use social media, right? And it all goes back to each individual's own like idiosyncrasies and why they do X, Y, and Z. And then I think that you have to get into demographics and all this other type of stuff that could probably lead to that answer. But I don't think that it's just in general in League of Legends. I think in general, social media generally is not somewhere that you would go unless you're seeking out like creators or something like that, if you're necessarily trying to find extremely accurate or high level discussions or advice or something like that, right? Yeah. All right, let's get a speaker in here. Let's see. Let's see, who's trying to speak? Who's this? Tundra E West. Sup, jungle coach? Okay. Let's get this guy in here. And remember, anyone can request to speak if you want to have a conversation about anything. And he. Oh, hello. Yeah. Hi. Yeah, your mic quality is fine.
Okay,
How are you?
okay, I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm okay.
Okay, so what I wanted to ask is, so you've been advocating for low risk, low variance play over the years, right? When it comes to like
Sure.
strategy, so like you want to have like the lowest risk possible, so that the enemy doesn't have like the tools that just rely on human error to win the game. So you want to like basically just choke the enemy out and like slowly win, which I think is also the correct play.
Well, I have to stop
Yeah,
you.
sure.
Hold on. I have to stop you. Low risk and low variance are not always hand in hand. Something could actually be high risk, but low variance because of a specific condition. Yeah.
Yeah,
Anyways, go
I
ahead.
didn't mean to exactly say that they go hand in hand, but like that's basically like what I'm trying to say. But yeah, anyway, what I wanted to ask is, so if you play this kind of play style, I feel like logically thinking, it can make you improve, and it will make you improve because you don't rely on your opponents making mistakes. However, if you do reach a certain point where like you climb, for example, in solo queue, and like your elo reaches to a point where like you play against opponents that are like mechanically really good, right? Especially in like Korea and like the Chinese servers and whatnot. And like if you do play that low risk play style, it would that like make you stagnate in terms of like your mechanical skill? Because like if you do rely on human error, you beat players better than you, and if you keep beating players better than you, I feel like it can make you improve in the micro sense of league, maybe not the macro sense, but would you think that like that play style would make you stagnate your mechanical improvement?
Okay, so there's a couple of things to unpack here. One, you're defining it as a play style rather than as a choice, right? That I think is the first thing that I inherently take gripe with, because if the choice is lower variance, why is it lower variance? What does lower variance mean in that specific situation, right? So if you have two professional players laning against each other, and they opt in for a lower variance trade pattern that allows them to go even. Well, if going even has determined that player B will then secure an advantage because that's the way the draft works, that's not really a play style.
Yeah.
They're opting into something because of a decision based upon other information. That's not a style. It's not like, oh, I'm going to just play passive. I'm going to just not trade. That's not why they're doing
it. I agree with that, but I guess my wording was not entirely correct. But like I agree 100% with what you mean in that sense. It's, I guess, like a choice like would be a better word to describe it rather than a play style. So yeah, I do agree. I guess my wording was not like entirely correct, but yeah.
Choice is synonymous with opt-in. They're literally the same word. If you opt into something, you're making a choice. So it's synonymous. So changing your word or changing the word to choice doesn't change that problem. So you still have to rephrase.
I see. So like,
what?
If you were to
what? That wasn't it. Okay.
No.
Yeah,
okay. I guess I misunderstood you. It's fine. I wanted to like hear your thoughts on like my final point. Like, would that make you stagnate if you were to make that choice?
Well, no. It's not. It's not because again, you're dumbing it down to something to where you're viewing it as always intrinsically passive decisions, right? But that's not what it is. Something can be low variance and still be an offensive or an aggressive play. Repeat what I just said in your own words.
You're saying that like something can be still low variance. You can play in a low variant, like you can choose to play low variance and still play aggressively, depending on like the draft, and like you can opt into that depending on the game. So it's not like a play style kind of thing where like you decide over 100 games to like play that way, but rather it is a game specific, draft specific thing that you have to like make a choice on.
Or condition specific relative to a game state or a lane state or something like that. So if that's the case and you're able to repeat that, then why would that necessarily stagnate?
I guess it wouldn't. That's what I was trying to ask.
It wouldn't, right?
Yes, like I was.
Sure. Okay.
I was kind of. I was not like really like decisive on this like opinion. What? So like I wanted to like ask you your opinion so that I can like form mine, because I couldn't really like make up a conclusion. Like I couldn't come to a conclusion in that sense. That's what I wanted to like. That's why I wanted to like ask you.
Sure. Okay. All right. That makes sense. Okay, sure. All right. It seems like maybe I was misunderstanding.
Or maybe I misheard.
Your intention.
So I was in a solo queue game as well. They just FF, so like maybe.
I could hear your keyboard and mouse. That's why I asked you to repeat, because I couldn't tell if you were actually listening.
Yeah, the game was pretty much over, but yeah.
Okay, I see. Okay, is that all?
Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Sure. All right. Bye. Okay. All right. Let's see who we're getting in here. There's no way to see what the people want to talk about, and that's a little frustrating, because maybe if I knew, I could choose better. If that makes sense. But first, as always, after a call, let me just go and read some of the comments and go from there. Give me a second. Let's see here. Is Garen mid viable? Yeah, it just depends on the situations in which you're picking him, but yeah, he is. There's a potential type of comp that could answer AD meta fundamentally that pro play aren't using. Well, some of the AD mids were answered by other champions that just weren't getting picked. Like, for instance, no one was really picking Cassiopeia into Tristana that much, which is obviously very confusing. So that definitely is like one of the things. Cat Evolved not too long ago on the call was talking about Anivia, and Anivia has like one period where, yes, she is vulnerable. And outside of that, then she's not really vulnerable. So it's not the AD mid meta in particular that is just the problem. There's also other things that are at play, right? Such as like who the junglers are. And it's not just the AD mids by themselves. But those would be like two examples. Let's see. Balance-wise, what is the fastest clear speed you think a champion should have versus the slowest, provided the clear is optimal? I think people undervalue champions like Zyra Karthus being able to full clear and arrive at enemy Gromp and contest it. Well, actually, it's kind of, well, okay. Zyra and Karthus being able to full clear and arrive at enemy Gromp and contest it is specific on some other conditions that has to do with who your bot lane is and who your mid lane is. But those two champions should not just be picked for their ability to arrive at Gromp, because also that's only possible against some champions who are typically a little bit slower on their clear, and thus, likewise don't have all their camps done. But yeah, I would agree with you that against a pretty wide range of the roster, they are able to do that, and that is true. But you're only talking about a one camp advantage, and then you'll get your Scuttle Crab, they will run to the other side, and then they will get their Scuttle Crab, unless somehow your mid and top are both winning. Horribly bad that you're able to, in addition, double crab them and go up +3 on camps. And typically a lot of the junglers that, if you were able to go +3 on camps because of certain dynamics, etc., and then you recall into Faded Ashes, that's going to spiral probably into about an 8 camp advantage, which then you quantify what 8 camps are. But anyways, I digress. going back to, what do I think the clear speed should be? Karthus and Zyra having just really fast clear speed, it doesn't necessarily mean everything. And that's because of what Riot did with some of the changes to jungle over the last couple of years, where eventually a lot of champions reach a point to where it doesn't necessarily matter that you're clearing a little bit faster than the other champion because there's just nothing to do. Because of like certain lanes or because of what they did with dragons or like void grubs and like all this other type of stuff. So there's no real way to answer that question, right? I do think that there is a threshold of what you need to be able to do in order to exist inside of the jungle. Like I do think that yes, you do need to reliably be able to clear the jungle, and not at a speed that like the other jungler does 4 camps in the time that you do 1.5, right? But in terms of actual numbers, I don't think there's any specific answer. Hey, let's have a good day. You have a good day too. Let's see. What do you think needs to be changed for AP junglers to be less broken, bruisers to be more viable? For example, clear speed changes, 80 mid not being viable. I think I've answered that throughout different answers. Let's see if there's anything else. Let's see. Have a couple of questions on intelligence in League. I don't know what that means, but I will get you in. I think this is you. Hello? And he left. Okay. Well, I was trying to get him in. All right, I am at 15K steps. So we'll probably keep going a little bit longer. All right, that guy did not join, apparently. I invited him in. He insta-left. Okay. Who is this? Vigar93. I did not think that. I don't think I'm going to get that guy in, you know? Don't think that's going to happen. I don't know who this is either, and the profile picture scares me. So we're not gonna get that in either. We're not getting that in. Okay. Anyone can request to join. Just remember. Okay. Oh, if I hit. Okay. Oh, actually, oh my God, it's 8 p.m. Okay, I think I'm actually just going to stop it here. I'm just going to stop here. I'll probably do this again some other time. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Okay. Yeah, I think that's it. How do I end space? I don't even actually know. Okay, yeah, I'm just going to end here, actually. Okay. All right, thanks everyone that listened. Hope it was enjoyable for you. I did not actually realize the time as I was looking at all this, so yeah. All right, I will see you guys later. All right, bye-bye.